I know from, and I'm speaking now from a consumer standpoint or a provider, all I hear about are these social media managers, and it feels like the Groupon Injector version of us, right? I hear social media manager and I hear somebody who doesn't really know what they want to do with their life, but they're really, and this sounds harsh, right? But I don't want to cookie cutter these conversations. It
Sure.
seems like a social media manager is somebody who doesn't really know what to do with their life, but is really good at taking photos and editing videos. And it's like, you know what? I'm just going to call myself a social media manager and start offering people these services. And I feel like it's kind of watered down what true marketing agencies do. And I feel like it's kind of put a bad taste in providers' mouths to hire these companies because we don't really know the difference. Can you tell me a little bit about how you feel about a social media manager versus what it is that you offer?
Sure. Like you said, a social media manager is typically someone who, understands social media to a very base level. So there's, obviously different types of experts in the industry and in the field. What I do, what Nava Media House does, and what we offer is fully comprehensive. So it's from top to bottom. So we do everything from web design, from strategy, logo creation. We build your brand. We have different tiers for marketing. We send things out for approval. So everything is up to your standard and it has your voice, whether you are a practice or a solo injector or, an individual. We do professional videography, professional photography, event day, graphic design, event creation and coordination, which, we've kind of worked on that in the past. So it's everything that you can think of, we do, which
It,
is, again, very different than just a social media manager.
yeah.
And then on top of that, we have content creators who will go out there and get the content and put it together. But there's just so much more to what my agency does. And specifically, we focus in medical practices. So we are the expert in the industry. A little bit what I like to tell people is the difference between Nava Media House and your general agency is that a general agency does everything and anyone and everyone. Whereas Nava Media House is only medical.
It's
So
niche.
it's very niche. We talk to all of the reps. We stay informed. We do the lunch and learns. We are heavily involved. We do research. We understand, the different types of syringes. We understand the different types of neurotoxins or neuromodulators, the different fillers, what fillers or what products are coming out, what works and what doesn't, who's talked about what. We know the lasers, the treatments, what things like you really can't say Botox anymore. You
Mhm.
have to say tox. And there's a lot of people, your social media manager isn't going to know that. Your regular agency, large agency is really not going to know that. So it's very, very, very specific. And that's why I think, we're a little different. It's because we are the expert versus, somebody else.
And I think you nailed it because speaking from personal experience, I didn't hire a social media manager, but I hired somebody to kind of help me edit my content. And let's say I hired this person at X dollar rate and it was manageable for me to budget, right? But I looked into you and I was like, oh God, that's kind of a little bit more of a premium price. I don't know if I'm ready for that. Here's what ended up happening. And here's why I feel like I'm at a point in my career where I need to level up my game and kind of swallow the higher premium prices. Even though it feels like a lot, this is where I realized quickly why it's worth every penny to work with somebody like Nava Media House because here's what ended up happening. I hired this person who has no experience in the aesthetic space and isn't even a patient in the aesthetic industry yet. They haven't gotten tox treatments or anything. So I ended up spending so much more time going back and forth with edits for a single video. I could have just edited the video myself because the editor, while they were talented, they didn't understand the language. They didn't understand the feel, the look, the how I'm supposed to hold my syringe in that that moment and how maybe that clip isn't a great clip for that video. It ended up taking so much time that I was like, I should have just edited it myself. I ended up paying this person and we didn't end up continuing to work together because I just realized it was just stressing me out. Whereas I could have hired you, and
Mhm.
time is money, right?
It
I
is.
could have hired you and I wouldn't have had to have those conversations. Maybe I needed one edit, maybe two on a word or whatever, but you understand the global theme. You understand the look, the feel, the language. And I realized I probably would have ended up spending less on a true aesthetic marketing agency versus this like onesie twosie social media influencer manager that I ended up just not even continuing to work with. So I think people get scared of like a true marketing agency,
Yes.
but what they get in return is their time.
Is there time?
And that is so valuable these days. We're running practices, we're raising families, we're doing all these things. We need to delegate things, and that's why bringing somebody you in at the point that I'm in my career currently, I think is going to change the game for me and honestly, my mental health, right?
Like I have this conversation with so many people, especially who are on the fence about, hiring someone like me. And, I tell them, I'm like, look for yourself, look at all of the businesses and the brands that I've built. So we can discuss the process and, how that takes away, it takes that portion away from you and it gives you time. It gives
Yeah.
you time to do the things that you need to do. You can take in more patients. You can do your continued education. You can go and get ice cream with your kids and not spend time editing your videos at night or before you go to bed. Instead, you can read your book or watch TV with your husband or your significant other.
Yeah.
So I think people are kind of starting to realize. And then, when you bring in the piece of like the expert in the field, in the industry, that adds so much value because you're also taking away the part of having to teach me or teaching anyone in, who works for me, anything related to aesthetics. We are the experts. We already know. And I make sure that everyone that works for me is educated and understands and does their research when it comes to aesthetics. It's not just, you don't have to teach us anything because we already know.
I love that.